Anambra State is here. Mr. Peter Obi, and of course, His Excellency, the Governor of Enugu State is here, very strongly represented by the Deputy Governor of Enugu State, His Excellency, Barrister Ifeanyi Osai, will also be having Her Excellency, the first female governor of Anambra State, the first female deputy governor of Anambra State, Her Excellency Dame Etiaba, and a whole lot of others. So very soon we'll be having the team walk into the hall, but for the meantime, the Department of Music will serenade this environment with melodious tunes. Over to you, Department of Music.
Etiaba. If you see mommy water, if you see mommy water, never, never you run away. Yeah, yeah, never run away because if you see mommy water. If you see mommy water, never, never you run away.
Represented by the Deputy Governor of Enugu State.
Yeah, sing a song of love, sweet melody.
Also, His Excellency, the former Governor of Anambra State, a humble Nigerian, the delight of Nigerians.
Eli Kwanabe, personalities and dignitaries who are here in their numbers. Eli Kwanabe, Joromi, Jomi, Jomi, Eli Kwanabe, Joromi, Jomi, Jomi, Akwere Bona, Akwere Bona, Yei Buribo, Joromi, Joromi, Eli Kwanabe, Eli Kwanabe, Joromi, Kese, Kese, Joromi, Joromi, Kese, Kese, Joromi, Joromi, Jomi, Joromi, Jomi, Joromi, Jomi, anyone affair, Joromi, anyone affair, anyone affair, anyone affair, Joromi, Jomi,
Thank you very much. The department, please, may we take the national anthem, please.
Uncle, national anthem.
University of Nigeria song.
University of Nigeria.
Where your men and women to see for knowledge and rejoice for the sake of knowledge.
Where the nations both
Just before we take our seats, may I respectfully request the Deputy Vice Chancellor, Academic Professor Johnson Orama, to lead us in opening prayers.
Check, two, check. Check, two, check, two. Yeah. Yeah. Check, two.
Shall we pray? The Father, and of the Son, and of the Spirit. Amen. Precious Father, thank you for this day. This is the day you have made, and we shall rejoice in it. Thank you, O Lord, for this university, the University of Nigeria and Nsukka. Thank you for Enugu State. Thank you for Nigeria. Thank you for the occasion for which we are all gathered here today. Thank you for all that came from far and near. All of us journey mercies to be here. Even this lecture we have gathered here, we pray, O Lord, that you give, O Lord, a memorable day here. That the lecture and all the activities, Jehovah, that we shall hold here will be one that will bring glory to your name in Jesus' name. We commit the lecturer, we commit the chairman, we commit the organizing committee, everyone that has a role to play. Thank you for their lives. Thank you for the governor of Enugu represented. Thank you, Jehovah, for all the eminent men and women that are gathered here. We pray, Jehovah, that you use them, O Lord, to perform the functions that we have they come here to do. And that at the end, Jehovah, praises shall be returned unto you. Be with us, guide us in this function, guide everyone here. And by the time we finish, we shall all retire to our various places in one whole beat. Be with us, be with the university, be with this state, be with Nigeria. Be thou exalted for hearing us, for we have prayed in the mighty name of Jesus Christ. Amen.
Thank you. Thank you very much. You may please be seated. Your Excellencies, the Governor of Enugu State, His Excellency Honorable Peter Mba, ably represented by the Deputy Governor of Enugu State, His Excellency Barrister Ifeanyi Osai, His Excellency the former Governor of Anambra State, and Chairman of today's occasion, Mr. Peter Obi, Her Excellency the former Governor of Anambra State, and the first female Deputy Governor of Anambra State, Her Excellency Dame Veji Etiaba, the Vice Chancellor of the University of Nigeria, Professor Charles Arize Igwe, and principal officers of the University of Nigeria, distinguished professors of the University of Nigeria, members of the Governing Council of the University of Nigeria, honorable commissioners and members of state executive councils, distinguished academics, heads of departments, directors of institutes, deans of faculty, members of the press, my Lord spiritual and temporal, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, lions and lionesses. I warmly welcome you to today's event. I welcome you to today's event, the Ethical Leadership Lecture, to be delivered by a distinguished Nigerian. Once again, I welcome you to this event. It's a very auspicious moment here at the Margaret Ebo Convocation Arena. I want to especially once again welcome the representative of the Executive Governor of Enugu State, the Deputy Governor, Barrister Ifeanyi Osai. Acknowledge His Excellency. And of course, let's acknowledge the presence of the chairman of today's occasion, His Excellency, the former governor of Anambra State, Mr. Peter Obi. Can we acknowledge him? And the first female governor of Anambra State, Her Excellency Dame Veji Etiaba, CON. In the same vein, we acknowledge the former First Lady of Nigeria, the wife of the founder of the University of Nigeria, Emeritus Professor Uchenna Azikiwe, announcing the arrival of the chairman of today's occasion, the delight of Nigerians, a man in whom we are well pleased, His Excellency Okute Nigeria, His Excellency Mr. Peter Obi, humility personified, knowledge exemplified. In you we see a bright future. You're welcome, Your Excellency. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. I also want to recognize the keynote speaker of today's event. We'll be hearing from him in a short while from now, Chief Ben Etiaba, FCA. Can we acknowledge him? I recognize the presence of Apostle Born Great Clement. He is here. You're welcome, man of God. Thank you. I recognize the presence of the principal officers of the university. I can see the Deputy Vice Chancellor Administration, Professor Pat Okpoko, leading the pack. Can we acknowledge him? And of course, the Deputy Vice Chancellor Administration, Professor Johnson Orama. Let's acknowledge him. Academic Radar, the librarian of the University of Nigeria, Dr. Promise Ilo. You're welcome. I recognize everybody in the entourage of the keynote speaker and of course our mommy Anambra. We recognize you. Time will fail me to do justice to that. For want of time, permit me to run with the program. I may come back with recognitions later. May I at this point invite the director of the Strategic Contacts, Ethics and Publications of the University of Nigeria, Dr. Kashmir Ani, for his address. Dr. Ani, please. Dr. Kashmir Ani, we need you for your address. While we are waiting for that, I recognize the registrar of the University of Nigeria, Dr. Mrs. C.N. Nebedum. You're welcome, ma. Doctor, and if you're not ready for your address, we can shift that. Thank you. I've been asked to request that the speeches be made as brief as possible. Dr. Kashmiani, please, your address.
First of all, let me use this privileged opportunity to apologize for the failure of the electrical system, which up to 1 hour ago was working perfectly. And for 3 days, we tried it and ensured that they were working. Please accept our apologies. Having said that, Your Excellencies, Sir Mr. Peter Obi, Okute Ndibo, Okute Nigeria, former Executive Governor of Anambra State, Your Excellency, Her Excellency, Dame Dr. Veji Etiaba, Mama Anambra, Mama Africa, CON, His Excellency, Dr. Peter Mba, Okutende Enugu State, ably and powerfully represented by His Excellency, Dr. Barrister Ifeanyi Osai Odogu. I welcome you, sir. Your Excellencies, the Vice Chancellor of the very University of Nigeria, the one and only University of Nigeria, the King of the Dance of Lions and Lionesses, Professor Charles Arize Igwe, for now represented, because he said he's on his way, by another power broker within the university system, a man I consider to be an ethical mover, Professor Pat Oboku, Deputy Vice Chancellor, Administration, the Deputy Vice Chancellor, Professor Orama, an academic icon, Vice. You're welcome. I want to recognize the council members here present. I want to represent them, Professor Fokansi, Professor Uche Odo, and the principal officers here, the librarian, the bossa, the registrar, and others. I want to recognize the traditional ruler of Ameze community, Igwe Asado. Sir, you are welcome, sir. Dejo. I want to recognize the revered sons and daughters of this great Etiaba family. The sons, the accountants, the bankers. I want to also welcome the man who will be doing a duty for this university as the 7th lecturer, Chief Ben Etiaba. From you. I want to welcome the friends, supporters of this great event. And may I humbly, even if I didn't say any other thing, recognize Pastor, Apostle, born great, Clement, Nume Domain International. Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Vice Chancellor, Your Excellencies, we know that we are working on that time. And my remarks will be brief. Nigeria is in dire need of ethical leadership. The There are several ethical issues of management of resources of state, issues of the electoral system, issues in higher education management. One of the reasons why we have inaugurated, the university has inaugurated this ethical leadership lecture and set up the Office of Strategic Contacts, Ethics and Publications, is to bring to the front burner the urgency of ethics and values in nation building, the urgency of ethics and values in management of resources of state, the urgency of values and ethics in our personal relationships, the urgency in everything we are doing as a people, in our relationship with each other, to build a better Nigeria. It was in 2014 that a vice chancellor came in and set up this office because he said academic excellence is not enough. We need character. Character building became one of the objectives of his administration. And he set up the office and then entered into a technical partnership agreement with Global Ethics Geneva, authorized by UNESCO to handle ethics in higher education. What we are doing is internal and external. On 3rd August, the Vice Chancellor of this university presented to the university community the new ethical policy for the structure of the university. Ethical policy will now act guide, it will act a benchmark, it will act as a direction on how we should behave, our character, our relationship with each other in teaching, learning, research, and in relating outside. Ladies and gentlemen, the first purpose of a university, the fundamental objective of a university, produce the human capital that serve the needs of the society. Our venerable, right honorable Nnamdi Azikiwe, Professor Mrs. Uche Azikiwe, I recognize you. I recognize you only because today we are honoring mothers and values of motherhood and their performance in national service. Our founding fathers have already done what they should do. Our university is known as the university that restores the dignity of man and woman. But we should not live on past glory. The university decided to rehabilitate a value-oriented and ethical university. We have a new ethical policy since over 50 years establishment of the university. We have ethics desk officers. You listen to the Vice Chancellor, Professor Igwe, inside that Cossey Hall, state that we are an ethical university. And we will not go back. Your Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, if we do ethics inside the university and we don't do it in the society, it will not be useful. That is why today we recognize that the hand that rocks the cradle rules the world. Ethics starts from the family, and we were privileged after a long search to identify a woman of noble virtues, a woman of nobility, a mother who excelled in the values and ethics of family management, a woman, while she was widowed at a very early age, was able to bring up her children, and all of them are full children. They are professionals in their price. Not only she did this in her family, bringing them up with ethics and values, this great woman was able to serve as a deputy governor and a former governor under His Excellency, Sir Peter Obi Okwute Nigeria. And so today, I want to join this all, every one of us, we must recognize our women. We must recognize our mothers. We must recognize family values. We are recognizing and inducting Dame Dr. Mrs. Veji Etiaba into the Hall of Fame as a fellow and partner of ethical leadership because of what she's able to do. Somebody will read our citation. I don't want to take precedence over it, but I'm saying our women are capable. Our mothers are capable. Don't say because they are mothers, you don't give them public responsibilities. I want to thank you. And what is the further evidence before I close up? The fact that Chief Ben Etiaba, the first son of this great woman, is the person who will speak on her. Chief Ben Etiaba, an accomplished accountant in his own right, a leader with great potential. I think the good news about him, we are yet to hear all of them, is still in the pipeline. I want to thank you that you delivered this seventh ethical leadership lecture, our flagship ethical leadership lecture. Look at their other personalities. Look at the great icons, the skylines of personalities who are accomplished in different areas who are here today. Thank you so much. I want to recognize one fact, ladies and gentlemen. The governor of Enugu State, Dr. Peter Black, ably represented here by Stephen Osai, has started what we consider a first in Nigeria by setting up what was publicly acknowledged as the citizenship chapter. The citizenship chapter is an ethical leadership move, very strategic. And it was the first executive pills, 001, as it stands so long. I want to acknowledge this accomplishment, and I will enjoy other governors to move ahead in that direction, so that if we start a citizenship charter, is a commitment that we give what we have promised the citizens. That is what the President Nigeria, His Excellency Peter said all the time, that those who come into government should commit to citizenship charter so that they deliver without compromising. I want to thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for bearing this moment. I want to welcome you and to thank you and congratulate everyone who inducted as fellows and partners of ethical leadership. Thank you and God bless you. Thank you very much, Dr. Atia and the Director of Strategic Contact, Ethics and Communications of the University of Nigeria. Mr. Chairman, sir, we think it's very
platform and for supporting this particular event to the full. I want to, in a special way, also thank the Almighty God for bringing us safely and for making us join this occasion. Ethics talks basically about moral conduct. And once you talk about moral conduct, you are talking about doing things rightly. Sometimes we begin to celebrate wrongs in society. Over the past few decades, many of us have celebrated wrongs. The values began to degenerate because we do not know where we're coming from. But I remember that the founding fathers of this great university established a university that is meant to restore the dignity of man. The implication is that we are expected to seek the truth, teach the truth, and preserve the truth. And ethics revolves around all these. If you are interested in being a good governor or a good leader, you must appreciate the values of ethics, particularly the golden rules that guide individual conduct. And those golden rules have been the anchor on which this university has been built. One of them is the due process and standard procedures. Respect for constituted authority, due diligence, commitment to excellence. If you do all these and then run them using the committee system as established and enshrined in our Act, then you are good to go. The society in which we are today began to degenerate because we have thrown away the golden rules, which specifically define how people should do their business as individuals and relate with one another. One of them is honesty. Another is integrity. The other is transparency, accountability, and reputation, as well as respect for others. If you share these values as a leader, as a follower, then the society will run well. Because an honest person is easily anticipated. People know where you are coming from and where they expect that you are going. And all this put together guide individual and group and collective conduct. Our prayer is that as we start running this process using our ethical policy, which we initiated a few years ago, the University of Nigeria will be better for it, and Nigeria will be better for it. If you're a governor, govern well. If you're a president, make sure you preside well. If you're a manager, manage well. If you're a preacher, you preach well and do the same thing that you have preached. What we are saying, in effect, is that honesty is not just for the leader. Those that are being led also should be honest, so that will also be anticipated. If you're a man of integrity, people will know your track record. Your track record will guide you. And that explains why one of us would normally say, go and verify. Go and verify. And that is where integrity comes in. And when you talk about reputation, we are talking about perception of people about you. And that perception is also built on your integrity and your character. So that if you do things wrongly today, and continue that way, people see you from that perspective. Even if you struggle to do the right thing, they may not understand you until you show them over time that you have the track record to do things right. Because it is always good to do good, not just because of the benefits, but because good is good in itself. So I want to welcome you most sincerely and believe that today, the woman that is being celebrated, along with the policy that we are launching, will show the light. Because them, Etiaba, is an epitome of good mother. And motherhood is reflected in the kind of people around you, how you nurture them. And remember that every child at the age of 3 has always developed 85 or 80% of the brain capacity. And more often than not, they learn from the mothers. Men are always on the run, but children from first day of birth, from the day they begin to suck the breast, they look at their mother's faces and begin to appreciate what the mother tells them, either by sign or by word. I believe that given the caliber of people in the family, 2 sons, and so many other lawyers around the Etiabas, the accountants and so on, has shown you that this mother did not just sit down. She decided to showcase that level of awareness and teaching that is required of a mother. Mothers bear our good values. And I wish you well. I want to use the opportunity to appreciate her as she celebrates her birthday and to wish her many, many more years in the future. May God bless all of you, as I hope that the keynote speaker, Chief Ben Etiaba, will do justice to the lecture and make us go home happier than we came. May God bless all of us as we travel back. Thank you very much.
I think we can do better for the Vice Chancellor of the University of Nigeria. Thank you very much, Mr. Vice Chancellor. It's time to hear from the chairman of today's occasion. I have the pleasure and a privilege to invite for his opening remarks the chairman of today's occasion, the Okute of Nigeria, His Excellency, Mr. Peter Obi. Your Excellency,
please be seated, please. Let me very, very respectfully stand on all due and existing protocols, because I believe that everybody has been recognized. But since we're talking about motherhood, I think it's only right that I recognize 2 mothers that I consider very, very important in our midst today. One is our dear mother, Professor Mrs. Azikiwe. And Mrs. Etiaba is the awardee today. As you know, I'm just the chairman of this occasion. Mine is to welcome you and sit down and listen to the lecture. I like listening. As you have always said, leadership can only thrive in 2 things. A leader must always listen and learn. Once you stop learning, you can no longer lead. So as the chairman here, Mine this morning is to sit down, learn, listen, and learn. However, I'm welcoming all of you. The governor is being represented by my brother, the deputy governor. I always tell people, governor and deputy is the same thing. So whenever they say a deputy is representing governor, I don't agree with that because they are the same thing. They are elected on the same ticket. I saw somebody yesterday saying somebody's deputy governor. I said, no. I say it's the deputy governor of the state. If the governor is not there today, it's the governor. So they are just two people that are elected. So deputy governor, I respect you and everything. And the VC. Ours again is to listen. I've been in Nsukka since this morning. I arrived in Nsukka by 8. I've been going from Bishop Shanahan Hospital, where I've been supporting the School of Nursing and the hospital. What we are saying here is we're talking about issues to do with ethics. That is the fundamental thing that is lacking in our society today. As you know, I can't talk about ethics. I read philosophy here. And the foundation of philosophy is ethics. So, I'm a lecturer in ethics. You can't, the only thing that is lacking in our society today is ethics. Because that's what builds your character. And character is what defines you. We live in a characterless society. And that is what we're going through. We no longer see anything. We now live in a society where nobody knows where anybody is coming from. I listened to somebody in government saying yesterday that he was being asked that, where is your secondary school certificate? He said, it doesn't matter. But you feel that you went to secondary school and they're asking you, where is it? He said, it doesn't matter. What about societies now? We now live in a society where people said, oh, he's there, let him continue. Those things, you forget it. It doesn't matter. We now live in a society where even if you say you went to Nsukka, nobody have ever seen Nsukka, it doesn't matter. This is what is destroying our society. So it doesn't matter if anything happens. It doesn't matter if you steal. It doesn't matter if you kill. It doesn't matter. That is what we're about to learn. We want to listen about ethics. We want to listen about character. So I know as the chairman, I'll be making comments as we go. So my job now is to welcome the MC. MC, you have to move fast. The people, the person that is going to lecture, we are not the lecturers. The house is to listen. So you have to move fast so that we listen to this thing Ben wants to tell us. Our mother is already nice, and we are going to today celebrate her. Ben is celebrating 60 years. It is very important. I always tell people a very great story that I used to have a partner who tells me that the normal life of a human being is 80 years. After 80, the other one is, if you're lucky, see doctor, see this, until you go. So if you have lived 60, you've done 3/4. The remaining 1/4, you must use it carefully to reconcile, to make sure no more enemies. If you have people you're quarreling with, you reconcile with them, build and plan yourself. So Ben is reached 60, and we want to listen what values that he's going to teach us today. So let's quickly listen to him. But you're most welcome. I'll be making comments as we go along. Thank you.
Peter Bini Dianima Mbombo Okutendi Bo Dianima Mbombo Onye Chimereze Nambada Poenaya Onye Chimereze Nambada Poenaya
Thank you very much. That the former governor of Anambra, our very own delightful Mr. Peter Obi. Can we give it up for him once again? We want to hear from His Excellency, the Executive Governor of Enugu State. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, let's give it up as we welcome for his remarks the special guest of honor, His Excellency Dr. Peter Ndubisi Mba, ably represented by the Deputy Governor, His Excellency Pete Ifani Osai.
You know, if you come to a university, you get very if they ask you to make a remark because you're in a university where they know everything. And when the chairman of the occasion, His Excellency Peter Obi had spoke, he told us about ethics. And you know he read philosophy. So when philosophers had made remarks, and the vice chancellor of a premier university, then if they ask you to speak, you'll actually want to ask them to pass the cup. But I tried to pass the cup, but I didn't succeed. So here am I. But, you know, it's interesting to be part of a lecture series. Now, this institution. It's interesting because we're discussing ethics, and most institutions seem to have abandoned what universities are supposed to be. So I want to thank the center, I want to thank the university for hosting this and for inviting us. A couple of years ago, I was on a trip to America, so while I boarded the plane, I met His Excellency, then Governor of Anambra State. We're headed to Washington together from Heathrow. So when we got to, I think it's Dulles, if not Reagan, there's a tram that takes you on arrival before you get to the arrival hall. So normally there was a slight struggle. He had one big suitcase and another suitcase. So I wanted to help him. He said, no, don't touch my bag. Leave it, it's okay like that. I now said, which governor is this one that I do not want anybody to help him? So I became more curious. He didn't let me help him. So today, as he was coming to make his remark, his aide tried to move his chair. I'm sure because I was closer, I heard. He almost went ballistic that they tried to push his chair for him. So when I became deputy governor, I didn't lose sight, I didn't lose memory of my encounter with him. So I have tried to carry my bag at all times, fighting with my aides and fighting with my security people. Because I tell them, if I'm not sick and you have your bag, carry yours, I carry mine. But I actually learned it from him on a tram as we were connecting from the arrival to the arrival hall in Washington. But I'm sure he has forgotten. When we discuss the failure of society and we talk about decadence, depreciation of who we are, devaluation of human dignity, occasioned by ethics going down, I want the university that is hosting us today to go back to herself and reinterrogate herself. Because most of the people who are in positions of leadership, both in government, in business, in families, and everywhere, most of us say we are educated and we are graduates. And I'm sure this university, as rightly pointed out by the Deputy Vice Chancellor, was created to restore the dignity of man. And we can't restore dignity of man if those values that society depends on to become what society should be are slipping from us. Time was, I used to come to this university when my uncle was living at Oba Road. I will come from the village to visit him. And we will come to this university because tap was running on almost in front of all the hostels. we'll come to do laundry and all that. But something will, after the laundry, we will wait a bit for the things we've washed to dry so that it will not be heavy for us to get back home carrying them. We will now come to play football in one of the fields here. I can't remember which one now. But we will play football with kids from the university community. Then some will be asking their colleagues, their friends, oh, have your father started to work? They said no. I became interested in wanting to. I realized from the boy I was playing football with that they had just returned from studies, I think from America. But the University of Nigeria, the same ground where we are, had subjected the father's thesis to re-verification before he can come back to lecture. But today, the same lecturers, those of us that graduated from University of Nigeria, send our children to Ghana to get education. It has become a class thing to send kids to England and America to get education. Then if we're walking home towards Armstrong, their house, after Greenhouse, the whole, both left and right, so everywhere, grazing. Come from all parts of Anambra, as it then was, to come for eggs and things produced by the agri department. I'm not sure we've lost part of our land. What we've lost is either the same or our ethics has eluded us. There is so much the university can help us with. There's so much that we can deal with. There is so much we must teach ourselves, teach each other. And only this university and her brother institutions can help us. So I want to thank the center, and I want to thank all of us that are here. But we must live here committed to becoming better citizens. We must live here committed to showing leadership in whatever assignment either society gives us or God gives us. Because we're all leaders in our respective strengths, in families, in our social clubs, in our churches. We all lead. We talk about transparency, accountability. As a matter of fact, when you're deputy governor and you finish as deputy governor, even now I'm deputy governor for only 3 months. Some people will say, is that how your own deputy governor is? How come you're not able to solve all our problems? Someone asks you for money and you don't have money. You say, oh, I don't have money now. Then you must be stupid. That's not how deputy governors are supposed to be. So we put pressure on the same people. We expect not to touch the till of state to provide services for us. But if all of us work together and make the needed sacrifice and create a society where we have a functional health system, functional education system, where nobody expects that you need to steal public funds for you to have access to good Medicare, where you don't need to struggle to steal public funds for your children to have good education, because there's access for everybody. At that point, we'll be telling ourselves that we'll have revived the earth we've lost. So I won't take much of our time because we are going to learn from the lecturer. But when we learn, I want to plead with all of us to implement the knowledge you will get today. God bless you, and thank you for inviting us.
Baristifanye bukwano memba nezia, obu memba nezia, obu memba nezia, obutogunem batasaye bukwano memba nezia, obu memba nezia, obu memba nezia, obutogu memba nezia.
Thank you very much. That was the executive governor of Enugu State. I've been instructed by the chairman of today's occasion to move very fast with the program, so we are going into the lecture proper. May I invite the Vice Chancellor and the Director of Strasep to robe the keynote speaker, and then we go straight to the lecture. May I call on the keynote speaker to please step forward, Chief Bennett Chukwuogo Etiaba, to step forward for the robing. Can we appreciate him? Let's show him some love. Thank you very much. While that is going on, I want to recognize the Nnewi community, the University of Nigeria, and of course the Anambra community in the University of Nigeria. I want to recognize Chival. Chival, you're welcome, sir. I recognize council members of the University of Nigeria, Professor Fokansi and Professor Uchenna Odo. Thank you very much. Professor Emmanuel Ezani, I recognize you, the Dean, Student Affairs of the University of Nigeria. I recognize you, Professor Omeje. Thank you, distinguished ladies and gentlemen. Let's make welcome for the keynote speaker in today's event, Chief Bennett Chukwogo Etiaba. You're welcome, sir.
Thank you very much. Is it good? Can you hear me?
Thank you, thank you, thank you. Let's have it down. Thank you.
His Excellency, the Executive Governor of Enugu State, ably represented by the Deputy Governor, Barrister Ifeanyi Osai. My chairman, the chairman of this 2023 Ethical Leadership Lecture, His Excellency Mr. Peter Obi. I think I'll probably have to stand on existing protocols because we don't have much time. But before I do, let me recognize the presence of a legend here in this audience, Bashir Rujeki Randall III, OFR, past president of ICANN, former president of KPMG Africa. And actually next to him is Chival Ozibo, FCA. Please, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, I'll acknowledge my mother, I'll acknowledge my siblings, my wife at the end of my lecture, just to save time. And I'll get straight into it because we don't have much time. The chairman and members of the governing council, the 15th vice chancellor of the University of Nigeria, the deputy vice chancellors, the senate, the rectors, trustee, deans, directors, members of the local organizing committee, staff, students of the University of Nigeria, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, lions and lionesses. On the 19th day of June 2021, while I was campaigning for the position of governor of Anambra State, and I missed the ensuing mayhem at the time in the state, if we all recall, and with 7 days to go to the party primaries of my party, my then party, scheduled for the 26th day of June 2021, I received the following message on my phone from a number that was not on my contact list. And this message simply said this: is it possible for Chief Etiaba to deliver our ethical leadership lecture at the Directorate of Strategic Contacts, Ethics and Publications, STRASEP, of the University of Nigeria, signed Dr. Annie Kashmir, Director. Given at the time that I was receiving many messages every hour on my phone, at that point in the campaign, I glossed over this message as I read it, especially as it came from a number that was not on my list, and given the stress of the period. That governorship election in Anambra State, however, came on the 6th of November 2021 and went afterwards, and the rest is history. And so on the 3rd day of February 2022, this was last year, as I was reviewing my messages as part of my post-election post-mortem exercise, I noticed that I had failed to contact Dr. Kashmir. I then contacted him and apologized to him for not reverting to him weeks earlier. I expressed my delight, of course, at being able to speak at this great institution. on a subject matter that appeals to me, ethics. Much later, I had followed with keen interest the historic achievement under Professor Charles Arize, the 15th, Arize Igwe, the 15th Vice Chancellor and the first alumnus to be appointed so, who for the first time has given this great institution an ethical policy. An ethical policy, from what I know, is like giving a value-driven leadership and moral guidance map to the university community. I congratulate you, Mr. Vice Chancellor, who's joining us later. We were with him earlier. And I congratulate the Ethical Policy Committee led by Professor Mrs. Edith Musu, all the principal officers of the university, etc., etc. I understand that this directorate is mandated and has been since 2014 to carry out its regular ethical training on leadership, citizenship, charter, and this work has been going on ever since. I can assume that every organization, institution, company cannot give the best without good ethics. And a tertiary institution such as UNN cannot give quality assurance of its educational products and graduates without a value-based and ethical learning, teaching, and research process put into place that establishes the best right-based environment. And by coming out with an ethical policy, this university on the 3rd day of August 2023 and inaugurating it, the Vice Chancellor has shown a commitment and leadership to keep UNN brand at the #1 spot of ranking in Nigeria and Africa. And so, Mr. Vice Chancellor, sir, this is the summary of the story of the journey thus far for me. And so, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, lions and lionesses, here it is, the 2023 Ethical Leadership Lecture of the only University of Nigeria. And this lecture is titled, Are Nigerians Getting the Best Dividends from Leadership? The Road Less Traveled. I'll give you the executive summary. An ethical leadership framework and trajectory has been hugely demonstrated by the management of UNN. And we shall need this going forward. And our democracy actually does need it for good governance and sustainable development to thrive. What is good for the goose of academia is good for the gander of Nigerian electorates and citizens. In the arena of Nigerian democracy, Adam Mayer poses several Marxist, historical, dialectical, and ethical questions that should bother us here in this hall today. What about our democratic development? What values, dividends, and offers have we given to Nigerians in the guise of democracy? From another perspective, I would like to look at this from the perspective of Martin Meredith, the author of The Fortune of Africa, The State of Africa, who narrowed down the research to ethical values of bad governance, corruption, underdevelopment, and the apparent raw deal given to Africans by those who are in power and authority under a 5,000-year history of wealth, greed, which he called the lost decades of both military and democratic development. Bad governance has been a consistent leading contributor to increasing poverty and underdevelopment, while economic policies are anchored and engineered by good governance, which is above all about managing state resources the right way, producing for the poor and people outcomes that will lead to a measurable better and higher standards of living for the people, according to Ike Obiora and Kashmir Chidionya and Globetics. Are these the standards of living our people are getting? Are these better after every 4 years of our democratic tenure at the national, state, local government levels? Have we been getting this since our democratic experiment since 1999 till date? Have we entered a zone of no return, which Obaze called in his book, The Waning Strength of Government, in which walls of social and human capitals between the state and citizenship in a democracy have fallen? Or do we still have flashes and beacons of hope in a dying democracy? Imagine ethical leadership giants that could blithely and readily wipe out the tears of our citizens, through the placement of new citizenship charters, contracts, and new pathways to democratic renewal for Nigeria and Nigerians. Yes, we do have, but we must identify them and work with them in every nook and cranny of Nigerian democracy. We discover them. All hopes may not have been lost, but we must ensure that we call all operating systems and operators in our democracy to be ethical, to ensure that citizenship charters are welcome aboard and become a commonplace phenomenon in which we hold our leaders to account to their promises and, if possible, sign those charters and compel them to deliver them over their campaign during their tenures, what they promised to do during their campaign. Are we ready to do this? Whereas this lecture will be examining the deal being given to Nigerians by our leaders, please permit me to begin this paper with an attempt at defining ethical leadership, which I simply see as that which clearly illustrates the basic conduct and style of behavior, attitude and approach of personality, and his leadership towards the common good, both in public and private sector. Thus, ethical leadership is well exemplified in both the public and private sectors of governance. We can safely state that ethical leadership leads to the delivery of measurable dividends of democracy, sustainable development, and satisfaction to the citizens. Whereas ethical leadership in the private sector leads to the delivery of ethical management of transparency, accountability, and customer satisfaction in the marketplace, the Oxford Dictionary, however, defines ethics as morals or moral principles that govern a person's behavior or the conduct of an activity. One of the scholarly definitions of ethical leadership is that given by Brown et al. As leadership that is directed by respect for ethical beliefs and values for the dignity and rights of others. It is thus related to the concepts such as honesty, trust, consideration, charisma, fairness. Ethical leadership, therefore, must simply mean doing the right thing in leadership. Brown et al. Also adds another layer of definition as the demonstration of normatively appropriate conduct through personal actions and interpersonal relationships and the promotion of such conduct to followers through two-way communication, reinforcement, and decision making. Can I have somebody, any usher around, please? Kasmir. I need him sugar down himself. William Lilly observes that it is the science that deals with morals and in the systematic study of fundamental principle of moral law, or as the normative science of human conduct. Tajuddin Toyin Oke, noted that disciplined behavior is a sine qua non for the survival and development of the individuals, organizations, and nations. So ethics underline the principles of behavior that govern the frameworks for governing individuals, organizations, societies to bring the best out of them. And from this background, conceptual elucidation, we could see that ethics gives to leadership and management of individuals, organizations, states, societies sustainable development. Without ethical leadership and management of resources, states will continue to miss the mark in governance and will consistently fail to meet the expectations of our citizens in our democracy. And so how have we then fared in this regard? You'll probably notice that I'm rushing through my paper. And I do this because we've wasted so much time. And I hope that when we have events like this, that we don't waste so much time and get straight to the main point, because we're losing the flavor of the paper for me. I have to rush through it so that people can now get to the airport and board their flights. I have chosen, as part of the executive summary to this lecture, to present the concept of ethical leadership first, especially as I speak today on the platform of the ethical leadership discourse. I have also designed this lecture in a way that will spark a conversation around this subject matter at the end of my delivery. Thank you. do hope. Hello? And this is even better. I do hope that this approach will further explore the points that I will raise here while highlighting and analyzing how much our people have benefited from the proverbial dividends of leadership. This content analysis of leadership was corporately posed during a 2016 Global Conference on Ethics in Higher Education under the Consortium of Ethical Universities in Geneva. In the foreword to the ethical dilemma facing Nigeria, Iko Biora Onya Chidi and Ikasme observed as follows. Ethical leadership presents a unique theory of change for the transformation of Nigeria and Nigerians through the agency of ethical revitalization and orientation. A good theory of change is always pointing in a particular direction, and it comes with promises, prospects, and refreshing perspectives for doing new things in the environment. The theory of ethical leadership, because it emphasizes the use of principles of citizenship charter, prudence, accountability, transparency, and people-based budgeting, monitoring, tracking, policy making, has the capacity to save Nigeria's democracy in a sustainable manner. And so let's look at leadership in Nigeria. African countries, states, and organizations, to be sincere, since independence, according to Chinedu Ike, have tried to introduce and maintain new values and patterns of behavior in their political and economic development endeavors. But I will pose a question today, and the question is this: how far have our leaders succeeded in embedding these new values and patterns of ethical leadership in their governance styles? In my opinion, today in Nigeria, we have a leadership that has the following leadership characteristics. We have adopted but greatly misinterpreted or highly misunderstood the Western concept of democracy. I mean, we're seeing it today. We have displayed extreme selfishness and self-centeredness as opposed to absolute passion for selflessly serving others. We have used and abused power as an avenue for unbridled acquisition and lust for wealth. We have severely exploited nepotism as opposed to meritocracy. We have lacked any ounce of transparency, no ounce of integrity and accountability. We have seen injustice, extreme violence as a means of attaining and retaining power. We saw this in the last elections. When Nigeria and Nigerians were struggling to be liberated from Britain, the forebearers of that battle on behalf of the nation were all young people at the time. In those days, in the 1940s, Dr. Nnamdi Azikiwe was in his 30s and founded the NCNC. Chief Obafemi Awolowo, Alhaji Tafawa Balewa, Alhaji Amadu Obelo, Chief Samuel Ladoke Akintola were all in their 20s and 30s. That was how young they were at the time. By the end of the Civil War in 1970, we inherited a crop of young leaders in their early 30s in Nigeria. These leaders, young then, are mostly still leading Nigeria today, nearly 50 years later. Not a surprise that the state of our nation's democratic blocks are ragged. Leadership blocks are ragged as they are today, leading us to examining the extent to which democracy and the dividends have eluded us. The question really that one is grappling with in this presentation is, are Nigerians getting the best dividends from the leadership? As this question begs for answers in this presentation, it is rather easier at this point to become a rabble-rouser, Gani Fawemi, Femi Falana, and declare that democracy is dead in Nigeria today. I will, however, and must resist such pronouncement at this stage, but rather look at the pointers that will lead us one way or the other to logically conclude one way or the other. The greatness of any nation is realized through the effectiveness of its institutions. It is not proclaimed or asserted, but by how well the building blocks of the nation are represented by its institutions. And countries of the world, we know, are ranked based on a variety of indices. These indices can be economic, they can be social, they can be political in nature. These outputs, therefore, give rankings based on what is produced by human beings in concept and productivity. These are all parts of the blocks of building a successful nation. China, which was a closed society for several decades, is today seen as a role model for the rest of the world to emulate. This is a country that has never practiced democracy, only relying on the leadership of just a few good men and women to drive their national agenda. They are not known to be religious, too. It will be very apt at this stage to look at the problems confronting our citizens today. This will help us to understand our challenges, in turn enable us to assess how far our leadership experiment has contributed in either solving or exacerbating our challenges. These problems, simply stated, are unemployment, abuse of substances, social media phenomenon, corruption, cultism, poverty, bad state of healthcare, substandard quality of education, failure of leadership. I go ahead to look at unemployment. I'm not going to read it. Believe you all have a copy of the lecture. I look at substance abuse. I'm not going to read it out. It's there. I look at social media phenomenon. Let me deal with this a bit because social media played a big role in the last election. Because when a particular candidate started, he was being mocked, and his followers were being mocked that there were four guys tweeting in a room. But by the end of the process, they knew that Nigerians had been communicated to. This phenomenon has pervaded our society. The world has been changed so much by social media. Often in Nigeria, our people will take to it for very frivolous reasons. But like I say, the result and the impact was there for all of us to see. Let's look at corruption because, again, a candidate that I know was always telling us that either we kill corruption or corruption will kill us. And that is what seems to be playing out now. This has unfortunately become very endemic in Nigeria today. In the year 2021, Transparency International, the Global Coalition Against Corruption, ranked Nigeria 154 out of 180 countries. Yeah, that's very good. The citizens cannot be blamed entirely for this, as our leaders have largely been responsible for this terrible agenda. We look at cultism. We're in a great citadel of learning. I'm sure you're grappling with these issues. Let me not say so much about that, but go straight to poverty in Nigeria. Over 70% of Nigerian families live in abject poverty, according to a 2018 World Bank report. This results in a large number of our youths dropping out of schools, unqualified for the job market, taken to the street for crimes, and other ills. A lot of dreams are therefore abandoned while frustrations are setting, and innocent citizens become the targets and anger of those angry citizens. These have led to unrests. They have led to various forms of agitation ongoing in Nigeria, including kidnapping for ransom and gruesome murders. We have a situation where the state of healthcare in Nigeria is extremely poor, and I'm delighted to see in my party, Professor, I think Stan Okolo is behind me, sat next to Professor Emeritus Uche Azikiwe, whose husband I referred to earlier. Stan just stepped down as the DG of West Africa Health Organization. So the poor state of healthcare is, we all know this. I don't have to speak so much about that. Substandard state of education. I mean, it is so bad. The standard of education in this country is so low that though many of our graduates have the requisite paper qualifications to excel in life, they have remained largely unemployable and unemployed. Nigeria can never develop beyond our human capital. And whilst I talk about qualifications, let me digress a bit. I know I'm trying to save time, but I want to make a comment. When Dr. Kasmir and he was talking about me, he described me as an accountant. And That was close enough, but not good enough for my mother, because I remember the last interview I granted Politics Today, Sheung Akimbaloye. Sheung was telling the world that I was a successful accountant, and my mother called in from London to tell me to warn Sheung not to describe me as an accountant, but a chartered accountant. So bear that in mind next time. So when we talk about paper qualifications, the main one for me of the ills is actually failure of leadership. Flowing from the above points, it becomes very obvious that in a country where our leaders have consistently failed us, there is absolutely no way that the citizens can get on without being properly guided. In fact, there is a real danger that we have now produced a class of Nigerians that are not aware of what the acceptable standards in leadership should be, because they've known extremely terrible leadership all their lives. The ongoing agitation for separate nationalities out of the present Nigeria have naturally been born out of a deep sense of disappointment by our people with the status quo, a complete consequence of the failure of leadership. Having listed some of these issues pervading our society today, which are holding us down from excelling, let me begin to explore other aspects of these failings. And these are our colonial past. Nigeria has become a mere, or became rather, a mere geographic expression for the convenience of our colonial masters, Britain. They had carved out Africa with their fellow European colonialists, including France largely, for their administrative and business convenience, rather than perfecting solid foundation for nation building for us. If we look around Nigeria now, we've seen a lot of coups, mainly in the Francophone countries. This is as a result of this colonial heritage, very badly built structures, and the chickens are now coming home to roost. The next one is our cultural challenge. Nigeria is a country, a diverse country of cultures, diverse religious beliefs and practices, so many languages. But instead of our citizens taking full advantage of our diversity to thrive and excel in a healthy, competitive nation, we have resorted to the option of wanting an easy way out and into a utopian state. And though as human beings, one can understand this feeling, towards our great nation, Nigeria, the advocates of separatism seem not to realize that there is no end to diversity, and that what might be a better option may lie on building on our imperfect structure and trying to perfect that structure over time. And so, because we're talking about structure, let us look at restructuring. There's so much clamor for restructuring at the moment. Quite a lot of the issues raised earlier have tended to highlight an imperfect structure and the need to restructure the federation. Will a perceived new structure solve our nation's leadership issues? My clear answer to that is a big no. For as long as we have selfish leaders who seem uninterested in the led, however perfect the structure is, will never actualize our nation's leadership potentials. We need selfless leaders, pure and simple. How can a country that is unable to conduct a simple census, plan successfully, or allocate the nation's resources? The allocation of nation's resources on a skewed figure can never ever lead to genuine development, as the foundation for such distribution of instruments of national development cannot be objectively justified, and this will always produce the wrong results. And so let's look at the anti-corruption war. Because of the extremely high level of corrupt practices and corruption generally in Nigeria, we have 3 agencies dealing with these: the EFCC, the CCB, the ICPC. These agencies have been saddled with the responsibility of checking against corrupt practices, etc., etc. As much as these agencies are trying to live up to their respective mandates, incessant complaints of bias have continued to trail their operations over the years. Let us look at the civil service. The role of the civil service in Nigeria has remained the delivery of public services, especially in the areas of supporting policy-making functions of government at all levels. The role of Nigerians is brought to the fore here, as the civil service has to survive, and for it to survive, its remit, and for it to remain effective, there must always be fresh injection of blood. We look at the judiciary. I mean, the judiciary is often described as the last hope of the common man. And let me not read further here or make further comments on the judiciary because I want to be able to sleep on my warm bed tonight. If I say it as I feel it now, there might be some men in black coats waiting for me out there. And like I said, I'm not a Femi Falana, even though I have a Etiaba SN to bail me if anything happens to me. Because can you give, it is not easy to have them, these sons in my family. I'm so proud of them. Today in Nigeria, our leaders seem to come into office not as a result of having anything to offer us, but simply put, as a result of having the right connections. And more often than not, not those with leadership skills and great visions are frozen out. We've seen it manifest, even recently. How can an enduring leadership be built this way? How can the citizens now break into the system and be allowed to contribute towards building the great leadership structure if there is a barrier already facing them? These things are very difficult, I say, and unless you are connected to the high and mighty or privileged enough to have some powerful godfathers, you are frozen out of the system. So the main problem is failure of leadership. We're getting there. Every state that fails inevitably lacks ethical leadership, pure and simple. In short, lacks good governance. Lack of ethical leadership and unfulfillment of the content of the citizenship charter to deliver a good deal leads to insecurity, leads to states being unsafe, being weak, and almost always fails to provide good educational and medical services to the citizens. We saw that earlier. Nigeria, obviously and sadly, without any shadow of a doubt, presently qualifies as a failed state, given this listed criteria. Do we have icons of ethical leadership and islands of hope for citizens? That question should be transparently answered by every leader and by the citizens of this country. The Fourth Republic in Nigeria commenced in 1999, giving birth to the leadership that we presently have. And as democracy ushered in a new leadership in Nigeria upon independence on the first day of October 1960, our people were very hopeful that at last the country was poised to take off. For a little over 5 years, in the first half of the 1960s, that hope seemed well on the way to being realized until the military coup of January 1966. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, it has been downhill for Nigeria ever since. A 3-year civil war ensued, followed by a counter coup and a pogrom. This gave birth to a new set of leadership that eventually left in 1979. That leadership ended with the Second Republic of Al-Haji Shehu Shagari. And so within 5 years from that date, the country witnessed another military intervention by the then Major General Muhammad Buhari. Several other military leaders later, Ernest Shonekan in between. In 1999, we all witnessed the Fourth Republic that we are still in as I speak. As a result of these periodic interruptions by various military governments, one should now aptly ask, how much have we fared in disbursements of the proverbial dividends of democracy? And is Nigeria a failed state? There are 4 kinds of nations. We have the strong nations, We have the weak nations, we have the failed nations, and we have the collapsed nations. Weakness consists of providing many, but not all, of essential public goods, the most important of which are security and safety. If citizens are not secure from harm within their national borders, governments cannot deliver good governance. Nigeria is now a failing state, pure and simple. In this publication, titled Failed States, Collapsed States, Weak States, Causes and Indicators by Robert Roberg, the author then posited that Nigeria states fail because they are consumed and internally engulfed by violence and can no longer deliver democratic dividends to their people. Dispensing dividends of leadership will have to include enforceable rules of law, security of property, a dependable judiciary, a set of values that are fair and just to all citizens. Other principles also must include equitable political participation without discrimination. These include freedom, the right to compete for office, respect and support for national and regional political institutions like legislatures and courts, tolerance of dissent and difference, and fundamental civil and human rights. Others are healthcare provision, schools and educational services, infrastructure such as roads, railways, and buildings, communications infrastructure, financial institutions including banking systems, and the national currency, strong economic performance indicators such as a strong GDP. If one is looking for an absolute illustration of a clear evidence of a lack of tangible leadership dividends in Nigeria, the End SARS protests of 2020 provide that in a most unambiguous way. A youth protest that had started as a demonstration against police brutality in the country snowballed into a clearly choreographed nationwide protest against government failings in security, healthcare, education, infrastructure, rule of law, and all other functions of government as we know it. And so we've been looking at this, sort of indicators, the problems. Can we now begin to look at the solutions as we now begin to profile workable solutions and conclude? Solutions to achieving ethical leadership dividends. The first principle of ethical leadership is for our office holders and leaders to know that power belongs to the people and that we have been given the trust to hold that power and to manage this power for a short while on behalf of the same people. Our greatest grief is that Nigerians seem too docile to realize this. It does frustrate me that we can't see it. The power to change and effect change can be invoked by Nigerians. And this happened during the End SARS protests in October 2020, when the IG of police in Nigeria was left with no choice but to disband SARS as a result of the people's collective will. The movement has since been expanded to include demand for good and accountable governance. Nigerians are now saying collectively and individually that they want and demand ethical leadership to save our democracy and unite Nigerians for Nigeria. I mean, who can tell me that they didn't witness that at the last election? Nigerians are demanding and yearning for good governance. The people and the power of strategic and creative thinking is already bequeathed to us. But sadly, most of us do not even realize how potent this power is. And thus, the power remains within us, unleashed. Nation builders are creative thinkers and strategic visionaries. So they must realize our potentials by thinking strategically and availing the nation of our God-given skills through active participation in the nation's leadership process. I mean, when I offered myself to contest in an election, people looked at me and laughed and thought I didn't belong to the murky waters of politics. And I looked at them and laughed and thought that was where I belonged. Exactly in those murky waters of politics. And you never know. One day, by default, we may get the right person leading this country or various segments of this country. And let us not say that we've not gotten that in the past. We have had good examples of great governors. And I don't want to begin to name names here because it will be so obvious if I do that. But we have seen ethical leaders perform in states that were overridden or taken over by godfathers, being held, choked, without being allowed to breathe. It took one man to come in and say, enough was enough. Of course, they fought hard. They fought very hard. For a brief period, it looked as though that wasn't going to be realized. But a woman stepped in too and said, no, this must continue. She held forth. And the story continued. And today we have a state that was better than they made them in Anambra. So, do we have great leaders? We have them. And we had an outstanding candidate at the last election. That's precisely the point that I'm bringing to the fore. I don't want this lecture to be about politics. It's about leadership. And leadership goes beyond politics. And as much as I don't want it to be about politics, I don't even want it to be about partisan politics. Because I'll say this about my belief in politics in Nigeria and largely in Africa, that all the parties are the same. Don't let anybody kid you otherwise. What makes the difference is the person. A particular movement was what a lot of people wanted, especially the young ones, because of one man. So we have great leaders and ethical leaders and selfless leaders. They are there in every nook and cranny, and you don't have to be running for president to look for an ethical leader. You can start as a counselor. You can start at whatever level, even in your schools. Why do we need selfless leaders today more than ever? They have always built and relied on great institutions. Greatness of a nation is realized through the effectiveness of its institutions. It is not proclaimed or asserted, but by how well the building blocks of the nation is represented by its institutions and are able to effectively function, maintain, and improve on their respective mandates. A number of our political leaders are now given to blaming the current federating structure for the nation's woes. I've dealt with it about restructuring. I'm not going to say more about that. Oh. We are or seem unable to hold our leaders to account. Indeed, we have neither a benchmark nor expectations of them. I mean, I've said that. For a servant leader, therefore, the delivery of the following ethical leadership essentials must be there for the democratic dividends to be felt. The delivery of great services is at the center of the servant leader style. His primary motivation is enhancing greatness in others, not greatness in himself, but in others. Legitimate leadership does not come by exercise of power, but by a fundamental desire to serve others, ensuring that other people's highest priority needs are being served. The policy, behavior, implementation, monitoring, evaluation frameworks must be encompassed by ethical leadership values as contained in a charter with the citizens, so they can monitor their leadership. Ethical leadership must be doable and measurable. Once in a while, the ethical leader must give the opportunity for the people that are being led to measure the level of delivery. For as long as power dominates the mindset of any leader, he cannot rise above a higher standard of leadership. Anyone fit and proper for leadership must have a detailed understanding of his or her calling. The focus and determination must be total. Every other human concern becomes secondary. It is almost like a high religious calling. And this was why Jesus Christ, as a servant leader, provided us with an example. He demonstrated this with his disciples that whosoever wants to be great should be the servant of all, as Christ himself was a servant of all. Christ taught us that humility must be practiced through self-emptying. That was how he came to redeem the world. In all, we need a leader who knows where to fetch the firewood that cooks the toughest meal, has team spirit, acknowledges joint efforts, and has reward systems. These are the stuff that servant leader is made of. He is a man or woman who is lucky if his input into human development is appreciated while he is alive. He is a man or woman with lots of scars on his skin to enjoy the dividend of leadership when the system is allowed to produce a selfless leader. Unless and until this happens, we'll only continue to elect political businessmen. You know, the most lucrative business in Nigeria is politics. I hope you know that. That is why they can kill for it. And that is why they will always freeze out anybody they feel is not part of them. In conclusion, I am rushing. I've just barely delivered 50% of what's on paper. And I've not been able to illustrate with real-life examples like I wanted to do so that we can flow and enjoy it. But let us begin to conclude because of time. Since the issue of leadership has been highlighted severally, failure of leadership in this lecture, as the major reason for our citizens not benefiting from the dividends of leadership, it remains to be seen if we can change our course and collective destiny by deciding to alter drastically our democratic process and our ways of selecting our leaders. The benefits of good leadership, which we stand to benefit from if we get things right, must include the following: conflicts resolved peacefully, respect for human dignity, freedom to act, freedom to speak, freedom to think, equality before the law, safe and secure community, good government that is efficient, transparent, responsive, and accountable to the citizens, and an ability to hold elected representatives accountable. Great countries are built by human beings who have the vision and dedication to embark on a great voyage for the benefit of all citizens. Nations are built by altruistic men and women, young and old, and they are attracted by a desire to serve society better. Great nations are built by building very strong institutions, not by building very strong leaders. For it is strong institutions that will lead nations to succeed rather than mere benevolent or dictatorial leadership. Leadership is everything, and nothing ever works without government patronage, either in the public or private sector, unless we have leaders with ability, integrity, commitment, and vision. We cannot succeed at nation building, talk less of dispensing leadership dividends. Strong institutions will not only give confidence to the process, but will greatly enhance and strengthen our nation building. While these panaceas are being advocated, it remains the task of ours to ensure that we enthrone ethical leaders, and this is the need that we feel, which has become more relevant today, more so than ever, as our country is now seemingly rudderless. Our country keeps drifting gradually towards a slippery slope to utter chaos and in need of leadership redirection indeed, in every sector and not just at the very top. We must remember that as we contribute towards nation building, our integrity, accountability, empathy, humility, resilience, vision, positivity will all lead, and these will be severely tested. We have a country, but we don't have a nation yet. After 62 years of independence, we're still struggling to build a nation. We mostly have to devote more time and more effort on nation building. And unless we do, Nigeria will remain what it has always been, a country where no citizen is patriotic. Our national flag, our national anthem, plus all the instruments of nationality will remain mere accidents of occurrence and will continue to evoke no meaning to Nigerians. While I have chosen these narratives in this lecture, I believe that the conversation continues and that we are able to open it up further in an interactive audience participation session to further drive home more pointers in an elucidating fashion. I also make bold to state that I most am delighted and dare I say, both pleasantly surprised and encouraged that this great citadel of learning has established its own ethical policy, which I was privileged to have received a copy from the Vice Chancellor through Dr. Kashmir Ani, who graciously signed this copy for me at Ifenia Court, my home in Enugu, on the 15th day of February 2022. The ethical revolution is a long-distance race. It is not a sprint. Mr. Chairman of this lecture, Your Excellencies here present, members of the Governing Council, the Vice Chancellor, the DVCs here present, the Senate, members of the LOC, community, the staff and students of the University of Nigeria, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, I express my profound gratitude and appreciation that this great institution has found my humble self worthy of delivering the university's 2023 flagship ethical leadership lecture. And I thank the Vice Chancellor and the entire management of the University of Nigeria for deeming it fit to pursue this noble discourse, just as I appreciate all the guests who have made out time to speak. And as much as I have been jumping from pillar to post, trying to save time, I have to thank you all for listening. I am Ben Etiaba.
Thank you. I'm happy that a VC, you were not here when we started. So when I was saying my VC visited, I was saying in my opening speech that I'm here to learn. And the first thing I learned today is that you're the first alumnus that is visiting here. As you know, I always say to people that the university now belongs to us. Because the VC and the DVC were all my mates here. So when I go to people, they said, I said, don't ask me about my degree. Let me tell you those I was in university with. That anybody, yes, that verify that. I said, anybody who comes to University of Nigeria, Nsukka, while I was there for 4 years and say he didn't notice me, maybe he wasn't in this university. Eh? I said maybe he didn't. I went to see the Bishop of Nsukka today, the Catholic Bishop of Nsukka, and I said, I went to his house and I said, I called the name of this street, called the name of the street. He said, I said, my Lord, I know every street here. I live in Off-Lono. Everybody knows I built my own house. I'm a Nsukka person. So I know Nsukka. So VC, thank you. Mr. Ben, thank you, thank you, thank you. The lecture, I'm sure the DVC and the VC have listened to it. I've always said, VC, I'm one of those who are protesting when I hear people being given doctorate degree by a great university like Nsukka. And as governor, and until recently, just about 2 weeks ago, a university insisted they must give me a doctorate degree. And I've always insisted, the day I want to answer doctor, I'll read for it. But the people, by the times I listen to people, and I say, you might consider them for a doctorate, honorary doctorate degree. You won't know what this lecture means to me and all of us who listen to this lecture. You know, in Nigeria, we don't like lecture. We don't like meetings like this. If I say I'm doing wine carrying or burial ceremony and everything, the place will be filled. If it's a political meeting now, the place will be filled. That is the failure of Nigeria. Because we don't listen in what we ought to listen to. We listen to fake. Ben, I thank you. You won't know what you've done to people like me today. You know what I did when you were lecturing? I asked them to find me 3 of the books, because it's in your book. I said, find 3. Because I usually travel with 1, keep 2 in different places so I can be referring to them. Ben was able to educate us on ethical leadership and failure. And while the country is still failing, he was able to show it clearly. The only thing where I disagree a bit with him is that it is a failing state, if I listen to you very well. Nigeria is a failed state. What qualifies you for a failed state, number 1, is when you're no longer in control of your territory. Nigeria is no longer in control of its territory. I was to leave Enugu 6 a.m. this morning. I was told that I have to wait till 7:30 to drive to Nsukka because the road is somehow by the security agencies. I schooled here, and I was telling them a story that I used to go from here to Enugu in the night to a party and come back by 3 a.m. So now I'm being told to wait till 7:30. And that is the situation. I left Yanegua yesterday coming to Enugu. I was told, no, you can't drive that far. Peter, fly to Lagos and fly to Enugu. And I said, in this territory, they told me there were few people in Mbano. I said, please be going. Whatever we'll get, we'll see. It's all part of our country. That is a failed state. The second thing is when you're no longer in control of your economy. We're no longer in control of this economy. I was telling somebody yesterday who told me about inflation. And I said Nigeria is not calculating the inflation very well. And I don't want to join issues with them. That I read inflation statistics, and it showed that transport over the past 1 year increased by about 3%. And I said, you see how we have become liars in this country. From Onitsha to Lagos on a bus used to be 9,000. Now it's 19,000 something. How can it be 3%? I said, that is nonsense. We have an inflation that is over 50%. Same thing goes, nobody knows the rate of exchange today. You wake up in the morning, what you get, and everything, and you ask that question. And that is what is happening here. We have an unemployment that nobody can imagine the level of unemployment in Nigeria. Nobody can measure it today, except that we are just max producing poverty. That's all we're doing. We're not faking where I was coming from. I told Bishop this, I said, Bishop, let nobody tell you there's oil still, people are stealing our oil or there's illegal mining. The only people who are stealing oil are people in government. Nobody here can steal oil. Nobody here. To steal oil, you need a ship. For a ship to come into our territory, Navy must approve it. It must have the necessary approval. And the ship is not tiny. It's not a canoe. It's not a small boat. It is a ship that carries several barrels. So it is people in government that are stealing it. For anybody to tell you it's illegal mining, I say it's not illegal. I told people today, I told Bishop, I said, can I come to Nsukka here? In any community in Nsukka to mine anything illegally without the citizens approving it? They will kill me immediately. So if anybody is doing mining here, it's by approval of Nigerians. Nigeria has turned into a criminalized society, where those who are supposed to be leading it have turned into that's why we don't care about anything. So if you ask now, Peter, where did you go to school? He says, oh, he was in Nsukka. Where is your result? Which department? He doesn't know. And then university says, and people say, university should release it. Then Peter Obi will sue and say, don't release it. Hey, wait a minute. You was one who said you went to this university. I was in Nsukka. I'm a student in Nsukka. It doesn't necessarily, you don't necessarily need to say you went to school. You might not be somebody who went to school. There's so many great people in the world who didn't go to school. The biggest company in the world today is Apple. Apple today, with a market valuation of over 3 billion, is more than the GDP of the whole of Africa. But the founder was an abandoned child who was picked from a foster home. He didn't have to say, my mother is a great woman or my father. He was even a school dropout. It's written there. If you go there and Google it, they say dropout from secondary school. Not even, he didn't have to claim the school he didn't go to. And when he asks, then it becomes problem. He didn't go to any school. You can say, I didn't go to school. But please, the ethics begins by telling us, I am Peter Obi. I went to this school. I went to this place. I went to this place. And it's verifiable. People can go and do what? Verify. Let him get that 3 and he will qualify. It's a simple thing. Nobody. I had people who had first class, very brilliant, while I was here. But I can tell people that I passed through here. And this, sat in a class with people. My lecturers are there. People like Professor Wala. I'm still close to them till today. So it is important that we look at this ethical leadership. That is what is propelling society. That's what making society go. People are telling their people the truth. What is happening? I came back, I was in Bangladesh on Friday, and I felt so sad for Nigeria. It's a country I visited in 2007, 2009, 2015, and going back there in 2003, I was in pain. In pain. Because this is a country that has the same size as ours. They don't have oil. They are not exporting oil. They are not doing anything. They are just trying to do the right things by having the ethical leadership Ben preached today. by having the ethical leadership Ben preached today. Just to not to go back to those years I'm telling you, but just 2009, when I visited there for the first time, Bangladesh had a per capita of $688. Call it $700. Nigeria was 2,000, almost 2,000 plus. By 2015, they were about 1,300. We were 2,600 and something, almost 2007. Today, Bangladesh per capita is 2007. We are 2,100. We've lost almost 30% of what we were a few years ago. They have, within these 15 years, done four times their per capita. You could see the infrastructure. In 2009, their unemployment were over 10%. I was there by June or July 2009. Today, they're under 5%. And you could see it. You could feel it. This place is just collapsing by the day. And all people there used to tell us lie. I came back there and told somebody, you don't go to look for foreign investor. Anybody who tells you going around the world to look for foreign investor is wasting everybody's time. Foreign investor is like bee and honey. If you put honey here, how the bee will come in, nobody will tell you. I told you Macron finished G20 meeting, flew to Bangladesh, because Bangladesh has just ordered 10 Airbus 350. So you have to go and see them, because they're coming. If you look at all the economic analysis, go and Google where Bangladesh will be in 2030, where they will be in 2050. Nobody knows where we're going to be. With all this lying, joke and everything, and people think it's about A or B or C. No. A deputy governor was just asked, you didn't go to school. He said, it doesn't matter. But you feel it. You were the one who said, I went to this school. Nobody forced you. If you know it doesn't matter, you would have said, I didn't go to school. So we imagine your ingenuity as somebody who didn't go to school and was able to come up to this. But don't say things. We have now reached a country where, like Ben said, where people say something and do something else. I asked a woman to queue. He told me, whenever I queue, I don't get anything. This happened to me last year. So whenever I queue, I don't get anything. And after the tribunal decided our case, I called the woman and said, I'm sorry. Whenever I queue, I don't get anything. Because we had somebody going around the world saying this is how he's going to conduct the election. Everywhere he goes, he said, it was the night that I heard what was called real time. Suddenly, he said, no, he can do it anyhow. Why didn't you tell us it's anyhow? So that we can behave anyhow when we are voting as well. That is your country. That is what Ben is preaching today. And unless we do that, it will not work. Unless we do that, it will not work. We all pass through here. This university, look at what we're teaching people. Whenever I come into this hall, I feel a pain of loss. And I'm sure if you see, you'll be feeling it. This is our refectory. I protested in this refectory when they reduced our meat from 3 to 2. Meat. Oh, today, if you see food, then you won lottery. Meat, they reduce meat, not food, in this refectory. Because all I need to do is to come back to university, go and buy my meal coupon and keep it, and I'm sure every time I come here, I eat what I want. Everybody's happy. The same school today have completely collapsed. The children don't know what is happening. They don't know anything about school. Nobody cares. VC, thank you for what you and your team are doing. At least there's still something anybody can look at here. I've been to other universities and I can tell you it's a total mess. The money we gave INEC to tell us that they can do whatever they like, if we gave it to Nigerian universities, they would have done what we wanted them to do. They wouldn't do whatever they like without the money. But we gave them 400-something billion naira to do whatever they like, only in Nigeria. You give money, people, that amount of money. As at that time, $1 billion to do whatever they like. And that is your country. If $1 billion were given to Nigerian universities, imagine if they have given Vice Chancellor Igwe 50 billion naira. Imagine what the university would have been. They didn't give me anything, but they gave it to another professor to do whatever he likes. It's unfortunate. I only ask for prayers for Nigeria. It's a collapsed country. It's a failed state. All we need to do is collectively say no to that. People think it's about P2B. It's not about P2B being president of Nigeria. I want Nigeria to work. Work for everybody. It is not about tribe. It's not about tribe. It's not about religion. It's not about tribe. It's not about religion. No religion buys bread cheaper. No religion or ethnic group buys bread cheaper. We are the ones fixing this thing. Thank you, Your Excellency, the Deputy Governor, because with support of the Governor of Enugu State, I must say with their support, him and his deputy, I was able to do even what I'm doing today in Bishop Shanahan. And so, like I told the bishop, you know, I was shocked today, but people who went with me there will be equally experienced that. I'm doing a project there for the School of Medical Sciences. It's costing them about 150 million naira. And I said, I'm going to pay every kobo of this. But I'm doing it. I'm doing it because they authorized it. But it will shock you what happened to me today. When I went to see the Bishop of Nsukka, he told me an interesting thing today. He said to me, Peter, you've done a lot for us. The Anglican bishop, he said, I told him, I met the Anglican bishop of Nsukka, and he said to me that he also has a health center. And I told him I'm going to help. I'm going to do a lot for him. The bishop said, please, we are brothers. Do it. When people go to hospital, they don't ask them their religion. They treat them. So sooner, I told him, I said, 20th, today is 20th, that 20th of next month, I'm going to come in to start facing the hospital that belongs to the Anglican Bishop of Nsukka. These are things, with the help of the governor of Enugu State, I must tell you, attract the money, they support it. Attract the money, they support it. These are what governance should be. And this is what we should do, not to go and be doing other things wrong. So Ben, I thank you for bringing us together for this wonderful lecture. When I start quoting you, I hope you will not say, hey, this man, because I'm going to be quoting every chapter of that and everything, you know, on what you said today. It is, for me, it's been a very pleasant, good day. I'm not going to, for me, I'm going to go out here today a fulfilled learner. Because I said leadership is a listening and learning. I listened and I learned a lot. And you're going to be seeing it when I do this thing. For the students, it is about your future. Everything we are doing is about your future. Do not allow us to ruin your future. Do not allow us to ruin your future. You cannot be Changes in every society came from people of your age and people of your time. You can no longer be running away from your country. Some of you dying in ships and in seas. We protested for slave trade. Now Nigerians are selling themselves. Please buy me to Canada. Buy me to Japan. Buy me. When our parents resisted to be sold, they were in chains to be sold. Today, I'm sure, if anybody brings chain and say he wants to change people to Canada, people will queue up and take the chain and follow the person to Canada. That cannot happen again. We must stop it. It is about your society. Help them to stop the abuse. The lecture of Bennett Etiaba today is something I want you to take home, listen to it over and over again. It's about you. It's about you. Don't allow us to ruin your future. Because the society we are abusing will only take its revenge on you. God bless all of you.
Thank you, thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you, thank you, thank you very much. Thank you, thank you. We thank you very much, very sincerely. Our chairman is an extraordinary Nigerian. In him, we see a very bright future for this country. Thank you very much, Your Excellency, Mr. Peter Obi. Thank you, the keynote address speaker, Chief Ben Etiaba, for awakening the consciousness of Nigerians to ethical leadership. We thank you very much. Thank you, thank you. The students will still have time for that. Yes, he's a member. So we want to go straight to awards. We request the registrar, Professor Odo, and of course, the Vice Chancellor will make the presentation. The registrar will conduct the robing together with the DVC administration. Please, we request your presence here. You'll be robed for the award. The VC will make the award presentations. Cameraman, please, you know your perimeter. Thank you very much. Currently, we are robing the awardees. We are robing our very own mother, the first female governor in Nigeria, the first female governor of Anambra State, the first female deputy governor, Her Excellency Denveji Etiaba. Her Excellency Denveji Etiaba. Thank you. Please, if you have, I request the drums can go down so that we can hear ourselves. We request the Vice Chancellor to come and make the presentations of Ethical Leadership Awards to these very deserving Nigerians. The Vice Chancellor. Vice Chancellor, thank you. Ikorodo, can we have it down? Thank you. We want to hear the Vice Chancellor.
Resting on the existing protocol, Your Excellency, I prefer calling you Mama Nambra. The University of Nigeria, Directorate of Strategic Contacts, Ethics, and Publications, under the Vice Chancellor's office, has asked me to present this award of excellence to you, Her Excellency Dr. Dame Veji Etiaba, as partner and fellow of Ethical Leadership, Lifetime Achievement Award as a model, mother, and excellent leader. Given this day, 20th September, the year of our Lord 2023. Congratulations to you, man.
Thank you very much. Congratulations to Her Excellency Dame Veji Etiaba. The next awardee, Hello, can we hear the Vice Chancellor, please? Thank you. We want to hear the Vice Chancellor. Thank you. Thank you. Can we have it down? Department of Music, thank you.
Ben, one thing I've learned today is that if you have good parents, even when they are alive or dead, you will always want to remember, when you want to do those bad things, you know, and you will remember how mom or dad will caution you and say, what are you doing? And I've learned that today you are following the trend. And the University of Nigeria, Directorate of Strategic Contacts, Ethics and Publications, under the Vice Chancellor's office, has asked me to present this award of excellence to you, Chief Ben Etiaba, as a research fellow and partner of ethical leadership, given this day of our Lord, the 20th September 2023. Congratulations, sir.
Thank you. The next award. Thank you, Chief Ben Etiaba, for the Award of Excellence on Ethical Leadership.
Mr. Vice Chancellor, wait.
Hello, thank you.
Please,
take
please.
it down, take it down.
Please. The next inductee, Mr. Vice Chancellor, we inducted you last time with Monsignor Obiorike. This time around, the Deputy Vice Chancellor Administration, your deputy, Professor Pat Oboko, we need to recognize our own ethical leaders, as His Excellency Peter Obi has said. Therefore, we call him forward for both administrative and moral support and being totally obedient to you. So, Mr. Vice Chancellor, I hand the mic over to you as we robe him.
The next awardee is the Deputy Vice Chancellor, Administration of the University of Nigeria, Professor Pat Uche Oboko. He's going to be inducted as a Fellow of Ethical Leadership. That is where we are going to promotion of ethical leadership. The University of Nigeria and Nsukka is committed to that through the STRASEP. And if you look at the next item, the next item states what is needed to promote ethical leadership starting from the University of Nigeria. Just recently, the STRASEP inaugurated ethical desk officers in all the departments of the University of Nigeria. We want to promote ethical and responsible leadership starting from University of Nigeria. Mr. Vice Chancellor, over to you, please.
Yeah, let me, Your Excellency, the former governor of Anambra State, Mr. Peter Obi, you may not know that there's an Igbo adage that says, "Ananaga okunaga wala wala, ananaga wala wala nesue." Here we have a replica of the then Anambra State, and there's a deputy vice chancellor here. Of course, all of us will have nicknames, but this deputy vice chancellor has a nickname, Peter Obi. Not because of blood relationship, but because he will even, before the vice chancellor moves to a project site, he will go with his tape and measure and try to take records of everything, either with the contractor or with the tenders board or with anything. And today, I am particularly happy that the University of Nigeria Directorate of Strategic Contacts, Ethics and Publication, under the Vice Chancellor's office, has asked me to present this award to our own Peter Obi, or in quote. I'm not talking about Peter Obi, the former governor of Anambra State. And that person is the person of Professor Pat Okpoko, who is the Deputy Vice Chancellor, Administration, University of Nigeria, as a research fellow and partner of ethical leadership for administrative support, advisory services in the formation of the new ethical policy, given on this 20th day of September 2023. Congratulations.
Congratulations. Thank you. Congratulations. Congratulations to the awardees. Thank you. We are going to take responses from the awardees, but let me emphasize that in order to promote ethical. Thank you, photographers. We are done. Take the shots, and then we are through. Congratulations. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. To take the next item, response. We want to take responses. Please, it's important to note that the Strasep UNN needs a building, a new building, where they can train our students on ethical leadership. They need vehicles, they need equipment, they need training and scholarship funds. The issue of ethical leadership is very critical for our country, not just for the University of Nigeria. We want to take responses from Etiaba family.
All protocols duly observed. May I start, it has to be very brief though. May I start by, first of all, acknowledging the fact that the lady who is popularly known and referred to as Mama Nambra today, whose achievements we have all tried to articulate and sing praises with, is a lady whose beginning in public political sphere started with a man called Mr. Peter Obi. Mr. Peter Obi was the governorship candidate of APGA at the time and reached out to her to run with her as his deputy. And so it is very important to say today that the story of Mrs. Etiaba, Etiaba, as a public servant, as one who has excelled at the public political spheres, could not have been the same if there was no Mr. Peter Obi. And so may we give him a round of applause for this. On behalf of the Etiaba family, having been mandated by Dame Veji Etiaba and our own Bennett Etiaba, sir, I feel strong to respond to this august occasion. Today, we have witnessed a marriage between the Etiaba family and the University of Nigeria and Soka, and that marriage will go far in the name of Jesus. We are so very grateful for the opportunity given to our own Ben Etiaba to captivate us today with the lecture that we have had. We are more grateful for the honor that has been done to our own mother, having been recognized today.
The lead, and we need the support of well-meaning Nigerians to actualize that dream. The Strasser QNN needs a new building. The Strasser QNN needs vehicles. They need equipment, and they need to institute scholarship fund for students in order to encourage a study of ethical leadership. It's very, very strategic and very important that we are beginning to honor Nigerians that have distinguished themselves ethically, and the honor will continue until we get to that point where every one of us in this country becomes ethically compliant. So we encourage well-meaning Nigerians, ambassadors of ethical leadership, to please look at the direction of the University of Nigeria in its effort to ensure that ethics is entrenched in all levels of leadership in the country. We thank His Excellencies, the Executive Governor of Enugu State, ably represented. We thank His Excellency, the former Governor of Anambra State, Mr. Peter Obi. We thank Her Excellency, the former Governor and former Deputy Governor of Anambra State, Dame Veji Etiaba. We thank the former First Lady of Nigeria, Emeritus Professor Uche Azikiwe, for gracing today's occasion. We thank our deans, Chief Ben Etiaba, for doing justice to this very important topic that is critical for the survival of our dear country, Nigeria. We thank the Deputy Vice Chancellor Administration of the University of Nigeria, who is here with his amiable wife and Dr. Chinwe Ogogo, for all the things you do. You are the P2B of UNM, we know. Staying steadfast in the cause, we thank all our students for coming to this occasion. The Ikorodo Cultural Troupe, we acknowledge your presence and we say thank you. Thank you, thank you. Thank you for having me. On behalf of my colleagues from Information and Public Relations Unit, my name is Inyaga. Thanking you for being part of today's event. We hope to see you when next we call you. Do have a lovely day and celebration ahead of you.
Magana ya kare, thank you.
Yeah. Ezaga.
Aha.